So close. That just has to be the feeling around Mountaineer Nation right now as the Mountaineers fall 78-75 in overtime to Ohio State in a game in Ohio, even if not on campus of Ohio State, and a game that could have been a big staple victory for this Mountaineer team as they finally get together and start gelling with most of the roster they were expecting to have now on the floor. But close but no cigar. I'm Mike Asti, and this is our WVU basketball postgame show. Ethan Bock is there in location as he will now join me here for the Legends Showcase as the Mountaineers do fall 78-75 in overtime. His game recap is over on our site at WVSN. So, Ethan, they kept it close all the way through. Ohio State looked like they were eventually going to be the better team and get this win early on. And then the Mountaineers really fought, got this game to overtime. There was foul trouble at the end. Battle did throw up 20-plus points yet again. But despite all of that and despite an effort that really even the most pessimistic WVU fan seems to still be saying they're proud of this team and the effort's positive, because how can you really say anything else after all the adversity and seeing this outcome against a really good Ohio State team, but still another loss? What's the vibe there? What's the feeling there? What's your takeaways from this game?
Yeah, I think the vibe immediately. It's the team's 5-8. They're
Right.
going into Big 12 play. Their first 5 games, 3 are top 15 in the country, and the 2 unranked teams both made the Elite Eight last year. So it it's not looking good at all. Just based on the
Yeah.
beginning of the Big 12 schedule, the team's only got 5 wins. They don't have any quality non-conference win,
And bad losses. They have a couple. This
and they
isn't
have a
one,
couple
but they
bad
have a couple
losses.
bad losses. Right.
They were close to beating Ohio State, close to beating Virginia. If Blake Hinson doesn't shoot 9 for 15 from 3, they could have maybe kept it close to Pitt.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
there's just
Because
a lot of they just missed
yeah.
out on a lot of non-conference opportunities.
Yeah, and I'm sure too West Virginia fans are going to say that they had Kirk Risha against Pitt, that maybe that game would have been closer or different because Pitt has certainly been exposed to being vulnerable since that game. But none of that matters now. They only have the 5, and if you would have had the bye games, at least be victories, which you should have been able to win no matter who was on the floor if you're West Virginia in that program. You at least have a couple more wins. Now, for the story of this game, though, before we get to more of the reaction, more of the vibes, and an interesting comment from Ohio State's coach that I saw, what did Ohio State do to get this victory, and why was this closer than probably Ohio State fans thought this would be? They're seeing that West Virginia, they know about the history of the program, but they're seeing the drama, they're seeing the Huggins debacle, and they're seeing what's been going on this year. I'm sure they entered this game thinking they were going to mop the floor with the Mountaineers if bye teams can and if Pitt can. They didn't. They're lucky to get the win. And how did they do it? But how did West Virginia keep this close and almost get this victory? A lot of these categories that normally West Virginia has been struggling in this year, they were a lot better in this game, namely rebounding. But again, still not enough to get this victory. Actually, even better field goal shooting wise than Ohio State, which you do those things. It has to even be more frustrating for Josh Eilert and company to not win this game, even though Ohio State is good.
Yeah, I think Ohio State they got the job done today, just based off of figuring out how to beat West Virginia's zone, hitting crucial shots. They weren't shooting 50, 60% from 3, but they were 40%, give or take, second half and overtime. So hitting crucial shots when West Virginia kept giving answers through Raekwon Battle or Noah Farrakhan, or even Pat Sumanick, it was big for Ohio State to drive into the paint, kick it out to Jamison Battle or Bruce
Yeah.
Thornton, and they or Roddy Gale, and they were just making crucial shots at the right time, and West Virginia just couldn't respond to that correctly without faltering.
Yeah, it probably does tell the story here. Ethan Bock on location. Mountaineers do lose 78-75 in overtime. It just has to sting for fans just even hearing it to Ohio State, a team with double-digit wins and a ranked win, even though they also have been upset this year to Penn State entering this game. And obviously the West Virginia story now 5-8 on the year, no matter what you want to say about it and what battles with the NCAA have gone on. It doesn't matter. They're 5-8, as Coach Eilert did even bring up after this game. So anything interesting Coach Eilert said after this game, or even anything interesting that was said on the opposing side? Because I did see Ohio State's coach make a comment about Josh Eilert and company, and then also say what I think all of us have been saying, and no other coach has literally said, but we all know is true while we were trying to get them to answer this and fully answer it honestly, that it sounded like he basically said when he was scouting this team, he pretty much scrapped the beginning of the year, and it was difficult to even scout what he was going to see because obviously the roster is different. And even if he played them a week from now, it might be different with Edwards, coming back. So what was said comment wise that maybe stuck out?
Yeah, the biggest takeaway by far was Chris Holtman just talking about how unique the scout was going up against West Virginia. You're playing against 4 starting caliber players that
Right.
just got back to the floor, and then now they don't have Edwards. So you shift a Cook to the 5. You still assuming they get the 5. But it's just a unique. It really is a unique scout. Holtman said it's the most unique scout he's had to deal with in about 25 years. So, and like you said, he said he didn't even watch the first couple games because West Virginia didn't have Kirk Risha, Cook,
Right.
Raekwon
You're just
Battle.
wasting your time. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
That's not the team you're facing.
that the team on November 6th is so much different than the
Yeah.
team on December 30th. So, um, just to hear a Power 5 coach just talk about how unique that situation is and how to scout West Virginia even going into it is just unique.
Yeah, it's unique to hear somebody literally say what we all know anyway, but just basically to say, yeah, I mean, the first month really shouldn't matter to me. Although, unfortunately, Ethan, as Coach Eilert knows, and everyone knows, the record is still the record, and those games did count against the record, whether it's fair or not. No matter what went on in the offseason and what was going on with the NCAA and suspensions, etc., those games counted. So you're still dealing with the record that you have. And that's what you brought up at the top of this show. You're so far behind the 8 ball going into Big 12 play, an advantage for last year's team in the final year of Huggins. They got in the NCAA tournament despite not winning 20 games. And yeah, the strength of schedule and Ken Palm helped them, but they were able to take care of business against teams they should beat, at least win those bye games, win out of conference games, do well in a tournament, get into the new year with a solid record. And then if you struggle in conference play and kind of hold water there, it's not going to ruin you and you can still get in the tournament against quality competition. This team does not have the cushion that last year's team did entering the new year. That is the problem. That's why that team made the NCAA tournament. And this team, regardless of talent, likely will be lucky to even barely get in the NIT. And we know the offseason probably that will come. In terms of maybe some positives, though, because the vibes, it still seemed like from the reaction, at least amongst fans, were a little bit more positive after this loss than the other losses, because this is a good Ohio State team and the effort was there. And when you have an opposing coach say he scrapped the beginning of the season, you do understand this is a different team that could gel. They could be different in a week or two. What did you see from this team that was better than even what you watched a week ago when they finally got on the floor together, whether it be from battle or even the whole team together in terms of gelling? Because we hear all the time, once they gel, they're going to click and they could be really good and scare some teams in Big 12 play. What did you see in that regard? And are you seeing enough with them gelling that there's validity there? Like, do you think they could all of a sudden in a week turn it on, they get Edwards back, and then, wow, they have the team they always should have had, and then they're going to upset a team that's ranked in Big 12 play? Is that actually possible from what you're seeing?
Yeah, I think a week ago this team played more of like street ball, just based off of you have ISO guys like Kirk Risha could be an ISO guy, but Raekwon Battle and Noah Farrakhan are your go-to ISO guys that can shoot from wherever. But I think the team definitely gelled more tonight than they have been, and I feel like that team identity, that's the second team of this season,
Right.
is slowly gelling together. They're not quite there yet, especially for Big 12 play. But even with Edwards coming back, it's going to take some time, especially getting a cook to play 30 minutes a game,
Yeah.
or just figuring out who's going to have the ball in their hands in certain situations.
They need to like re-gel. They gel
Yeah.
now. They're finally good together, but then they might have to re-gel when Edwards come back. That could be a thing.
And it sucks for them because, like I said, the first 5 games of the in Big 12 play it's a gauntlet. It seems like every single season.
I'm just looking at it now. Yeah.
It seems like every single season West Virginia begins Big 12 play in the first 5 or 6 games are like against top half of the
Do
league.
we have an Ethan Bock conspiracy? Because people are going to run amok with that comment. But yes, it does feel that way. Certainly this year, it's going to sting more than others.
And maybe if to be optimistic, I think the schedule gets a little bit easier in Big 12 terms, at least through February and March. So,
but I mean, what if you're 6-13 at that point?
Yeah.
Or I mean, at that point, the schedule could be easier.
Too late.
But right, I think that's what I'm thinking, and that's what I think what fans are scared of. That because we'll say it: Houston, Kansas State, Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas. That's what Ethan's talking about. That's the 5. By the way, the only team not ranked in that mix is Kansas State. And Houston's 3, Texas is 21, Oklahoma's 12, and Kansas is 2. Only one of them is not in the top 20 out of those 5 that are ranked. And obviously Texas is just outside. Kansas State is still certainly a team that can beat them. And then, yes, what you're alluding to as well, after that gauntlet that easily could be all losses or only one win, you have UCF, Oklahoma State, Cincinnati. Those are more reasonably winnable games, certainly with Cincinnati being at home. Even BYU, you do face Texas again. Those are obviously ranked teams. TCU's in there. And then after you get the Baylor game, you have UCF, Iowa State, Kansas State, Texas Tech, TCU, and Cincinnati. Nobody is ranked currently after February 17th. So you could arguably win your last 5 games. Problem is, does that only cancel out 5 or 6 consecutive losses to open up conference play? And then unlike last year, you only have a 5-8 record after the year closes and after out of conference play, unlike last year when you had a solid record. So put that together and you got like an 11-win season. That's the problem. But
there's no cushion. There's no cushion at all.
There's no cushion, and if you have a cushion, you might already be out of it. Like if this was a team maybe like last year where they were kind of a fringe team and bubble team all the way through, you probably would mind this. Like Huggins last year would have said, okay, I'll get tested early on in Big 12 play, and if we're behind the 8 ball, we'll just win 6 in a row to impress the committee going into Selection Sunday. Like that'll be fine. Doesn't work this year when you're going to be 8 games under 500 at that point. Like that's the problem.
Yeah, West Virginia was a top. It seemed like their net was in the 15 to 20, top 20 in the country.
Even if losing last year.
Even if they lost, they would move up. And now they're in the 200s. So there's a huge difference. You can't lose to Houston and Kansas by 3 and say, "Oh, that's a good loss." There's no good losses anymore. You have to beat Kansas and Houston, which I don't think is happening.
No, I don't think it's happening either, even with this crew, which is obviously better than the crew you had a month ago. And again, regardless of why you didn't have them, it doesn't matter. The record's what the record is. And again, this is why a program like West Virginia, despite drama and with all the history and all the banners they want to put up there and even increase their history, what that says is you can't lose bye games. You can't lose to Monmouth, even if you have a backup on the floor. You're still West Virginia that you feel is a top 20 historic program. Monmouth is not. Doesn't matter what kind of drama is going on with the NCAA. So that's the issue that really has led to this season be what it is, regardless of who is at fault here. Ethan Bock, Mike Asti, our WVU basketball post-game show. The Mountaineers so close. And obviously Ethan is joining us on location there. And before he gets fully kicked out of the arena, just anything else to add about this game, this effort, this team, any news maybe you're even hearing on the Edwards front that was dropped in the post-game pressers, or even what needs to happen against Houston in particular. January 6th, they do have a week until that game. It will be the new year. That is arguably the toughest game until Kansas in the next couple weeks. And what would potentially be the recipe in that game, because obviously they're still going to try to win, and they have proven they can play good teams close, even though they still haven't really beat a good team yet.
Yeah, they can't get over the hump. It seems like as soon as you think West Virginia's going to get a quality non-conference win,
Yeah,
they squander it in the final minutes.
yeah,
They just can't get over that hump. And obviously, they have talent. This team, talent-wise, is an NCAA tournament team, but just
sure.
just the circumstances they've been through, they're not a tournament team. It's a lot of factors within them gelling together, like we talked about. Now you have Edwards out for another 3 weeks.
Yeah, that right there was just like God doesn't want you in the tournament. Like,
Yeah.
I mean,
And that's somebody you need against Houston. Houston's under Kelvin Sampson. They're always defense rebounding, trying to beat you, trying to turn defense into offense on fast breaks.
They're usually big, and the only big player you have is the one who's injured and now not on the floor when everybody else is back. Yeah.
Yeah. And the first half, Ohio State had 19 rebounds and 18 points. They had 10 offensive rebounds within the first 8 minutes of the game. And Houston is, if West Virginia's effort rebounding wise, like it was in the first half tonight, Houston might out rebound West Virginia by 30 if it's like that. The biggest stat of tonight was that West Virginia was able to regroup from that kind of lazy, slow start on the rebounding end and only lose the margin by 1.
As I was going to say, the rebounding here is 44-41 overall. Offensive rebounds that you're talking about, Ohio State won at 14-11, but West Virginia, this is shocking. And Eilert, I would imagine, has to be happy with this despite the poor showing in the first half. They won the rebounding battle overall 44-41. If they at least put up the second half rebounding battle, is that the recipe then? Like if they do what they did in the second half? Because
it'll help. It'll help because the thing, especially with just looking at the Houston game, the biggest thing is they're going to have to at least hang in there with Houston on rebounding. They have the talent that they can be able to hang in there with Houston's guards. I think West Virginia's guards are just as talented as some of the other guards in the Big 12, but it's just Houston traditional. Right. They're more of a traditional college basketball team in today's world rather than building through the transfer portal. Houston only really has one guy, an LJ Cryer from Baylor, that's from the portal, and that's just a unique situation. Usually, Houston's building through high school guys, JUCO guys, so it's different now.
Yeah, and I guess last point that I did forget that I see some fans bringing up: is there anything Eilert can do, or did he say anything on the foul with Battle at the end? Do you feel if he didn't foul out that this game would have been a different outcome, as much bad luck as West Virginia's had all year? Because that is the excuse I am seeing from some fans. And then what do you do in that regard? Because I even remember after the Pitt game, they did talk about that when you don't have Edwards there, we're going to really have to kick into gear rebounding ourselves. And if you're smaller players trying to get rebounds, which they did do eventually in this game, there might also be fouls that you're having to commit, and it depends on whether refs are going to be easy on a big man or they're going to say you can't do a hack-a-shack type of thing. And when you have your star player getting foul trouble on a depleted roster that's still missing a key guy, you're kind of screwed. Do you think the refs were fair to this team, and do you think Battle having foul trouble ruined this game that otherwise could have been a win without those fouls?
Yeah, I mean, I think the refs missed a couple calls, but West Virginia still couldn't get over the hump. They missed a jump ball where Ohio State was able to call timeout, and and I think Battle got hit on his 3. But at the same time, West Virginia couldn't take advantage of when Ohio State was missing. So, yeah, I think the refs played a part in this. And if Battle wasn't in foul trouble, they probably pull it out.
I mean, West Virginia did win free throw wise. They shot better than Ohio State free throw wise, and they also. The turnover battle was about even though Ohio State had a couple less.
Yeah, there was just a couple crucial calls I think the refs missed, but I really don't think it changes it that much or as much as people make it out to be.
I'm sure they're looking for something, but I just cannot imagine the frustration from this coaching staff because obviously the box score does not always tell the story, but this even goes to recent games as well, whether they won or they lost. You look at this box score, They improved rebounding, which Eilert said they had to do regardless of Edwards there or not. No excuses. You got to rebound. Battle even said he only's had a couple rebounds on average throughout his career. He can shoot, but he got to rebound to ever get to the NBA. He's starting to rebound now. They're rebounding better as a team, even with a sluggish first half. Overall, it was good. So he can't be too mad about that. They were shooting better than Ohio State. They shot better from the field goal wise, from the charity stripe, free throw shooting wise. The turnover battle was about even. Everything else was about even. Yeah, Ohio State dominated in steals. But you see all of that and you're preaching it in practice, and then you still end up with a loss in overtime. It just has to be, and no coach will admit this because they're still obviously going to try and they're putting effort in, but it just has to be a banging your head against the wall situation and going home and like throwing a chair saying, what can I do? Like you literally say, we do these things, we're going to start winning. You do these things and you still don't win. I mean, at some point, it's almost like we are doomed. And you don't, obviously, you're not going to admit that as a coach, but.
I don't want to say West Virginia's had bad luck off the court for sure.
Yeah.
Just with
100%.
Throughout the last calendar year.
Yeah, I mean, right. More than other programs. 100%.
But it's starting to get to the point where on the court you could almost make the same argument just because they've beaten teams in certain categories that they've improved on, but yet they still lose games. So I really don't know what else they can do at this point. It just comes down to, like we've talked about the last week or two, is just getting the second team to gel and once Edwards comes back, having him gel with Krisha, Farrakhan, Battle, and a Cook. So it'll be interesting.
Yeah, and Selinsky as well. And it almost felt like they kind of gelled in this game. And if you can get a win out of a loss, like maybe they could hammer that home in the locker room that, hey, this is a really good team that'll be in the tournament. You almost beat them. It's kind of on the road. Like you dealt with a lot, etc. But I'd imagine players, coaches, even fans, obviously, it's hard to hear that and want to hear that. Like they see the loss. Like the loss is the loss, and bad luck is not going to change your record. Whether that bad luck is on or off the floor, that is the problem for Coach Eilert and the staff and for this team this year. They are just running out of time to gel, bad luck or not. Ethan, that'll do it for this edition of the WVU Basketball Postgame Show. The rest of his coverage is, of course, WV Sports Now. Enjoy Cleveland while you can, and I'm sure you'll be enjoying it a lot more than the Mountaineers, who do lose in overtime, 78-75. It could not have been closer. It could not be more of a gut-wrenching loss probably for this team, but maybe they'll get one. Maybe they'll gel. Maybe Edwards will come back and they'll surprise somebody in Big 12 play. But you imagine, even if they do that, then it'll be up. Those bad losses still exist, and your record is still what it is. So we'll see in the new year if the new year can be a happier year, and 2024 can be better than 2023 was luck-wise for the Mountaineers.